What's going on? Welcome to the episode. Today we're going to be chatting about fat loss and why it gets more difficult as you get closer and closer to your goal. We're also going to establish what to do in order to continue making progress, as well as how to measure that progress accurately, because this is a really important factor as you move towards your ultimate endpoint. Now, it's worth mentioning that in the title of this episode, I used the numbers 15 to 20 pounds. That is entirely arbitrary and just an example. The concepts that we're going to discuss here apply whether you want to lose 10 pounds or 100, meaning I could have easily named the episode, "Why is the first 50 pounds easier to lose than the last 50 pounds?" So I just wanted to caveat that. One of the biggest mistakes that I see in regards to assessing fat loss progress is via using totals. For example, Judy starts her fat loss journey at 150 pounds and her husband George starts his fat loss process at 225 pounds. George loses 10 pounds in the first month and Judy loses 6. Judy then feels discouraged because her husband is losing more weight than she is, yet they're being equally as diligent as far as nutrition, movement, and sleep goes. Now, little does Judy know, her progress is identical to George's, because when you equate for relative losses, not total losses, you come up with the exact same percentage of total weight lost, meaning 10 pounds for George is 4% of his total weight, and 6 pounds for Judy is also 4% of her total weight. And I see this all the time. You cannot compare total weight loss to someone that isn't the same weight as you. It's a completely different ballgame, not apples to apples in the slightest. It's like two people spending $1,000 with two entirely different net worths and assuming that $1,000 is perfectly equivalent spending-wise between those two individuals. It's not at all. To some people, $1,000 is pennies, and to others, it's a lot of money. So if you're going to compare your fat loss or weight loss progress to someone else's, which I wouldn't necessarily recommend just because there are so many factors at play, but if you do, make sure you use relative loss percentages. Otherwise, it's basically like speaking two different languages. Now, building off of this relative concept in regards to fat loss, as your scale weight decreases, it's important that you apply this relative percentage concept to yourself as well. And I'm going to use my awesome client, Erica, as an example. She started her weight loss journey with me at 228 pounds, and she ultimately ended up losing over 100 pounds, which is incredible. She's maintained that 100-pound loss as well, which is amazing. And if you're interested in checking out her before and after shots, they're on the website under the transformation section. So we wrapped up her fat loss phase right around 125 pounds, a little over a year later. Now, as she got leaner and leaner, her total weight loss numbers on a weekly basis slowly decreased because as she lost more and more body fat, she had, by definition, less and less body fat to lose. And therefore, we were sure to apply relative loss analysis because 50 pounds on a 228-pound body is just under 22% of total body weight. But after that initial 50-pound loss, which put Erica at 178, 22% of 178 pounds is only 39 pounds. So these are two identical percentages of body weight loss, but clearly not the same total numbers. Losing another 50 pounds off of her 178-pound frame is actually 28% of her total body weight. So not only are total weight loss digits not equal when you're comparing yourself to other people potentially, they're also not relevant when you're comparing yourself to yourself throughout your journey as you continue to progress. In order to sidestep this, just make sure that you take into account relative percentages, because if you don't, it's sort of like assuming that 10 kilometers is the same as 10 miles. They are two entirely different units of measurement. Now, As we lose weight, we also burn fewer calories because we are smaller. So Erica at 228, going about her day and hitting her 10,000 steps, was burning more calories than Erica at 178, going about her day and hitting her 10,000 steps. Identical level of activity, but she was carrying around 50 pounds less doing said activities at 178 versus 228, and therefore she required less fuel to carry out that same movement quota. This is not an example of your metabolism slowing down, contrary to popular belief. It's simply the fact that larger animals burn more calories than smaller animals. And you can think about it in terms of cars. An SUV is going to go through more fuel than a little two-seater Mazda, even if they travel the same distance, because a heavier vehicle means a higher fuel requirement. Now, what that means is, because you require fewer calories as you lose more and more weight, you essentially also have less and less room for error. For example, if you start your fat loss phase at 200 pounds and you've established that you need to eat, say, 2,500 calories per day to lose fat at your desired rate, and you deviate here and there by, say, 500 calories. So let's say that you have 2 days over the course of the week that you eat 3,000 calories instead of 2,500. So you're 500 calories over your target twice throughout the week. After you lose, say, 25 pounds and you're now at 175 pounds and your calories are at, say, 2,000 per day because you made adjustments along the way to keep fat loss rolling, and you have a few weeks where you indulge a couple of times in 500 additional calories per day. And so 2 out of 7 days, you eat 2,500 calories, which is the same 500 calorie addition from before when you were at 200 pounds. These situations are not equivalent even though they seem like they are on paper, because a 500 calorie addition to a 2,500 calorie per day target is a 20% increase. On the other hand, a 500 calorie addition to a 2,000 calorie per day target is a 25% increase. And this is just another reason why it's important not to compare yourself to yourself when you're in a completely different situation. Because not only are you burning less total energy at 175 versus 200 pounds, when you indulge in the same amount of food, i.e. a 500 calorie addition twice per week, it's actually a larger indulgence at 175 than it is at 200 because your calorie requirement is now lower. I hope that makes sense. You essentially have less and less wiggle room as you get leaner and leaner because your total calorie requirement is lower. Now, I'm going to use a more extreme example just to make this more clear. If we have someone that's 300 pounds and we have someone that's 150 pounds, and they both go out to a restaurant and indulge in a 2,000 calorie burger and fry meal. Yes, on its head, it is 2,000 calories total for both folks. But that 2,000 calories is going to take a lot longer to burn off for the 150-pound individual than it is for the 300-pound person, because they're going to have far different fuel requirements. It's common for women to get frustrated by watching how much their husbands eat, but in general, men are just larger than women. And remember, a larger animal requires more fuel to do the same things. And so there's just no comparison to be made here. Again, 2 entirely different sets of circumstances. So what this means is, as you lose more and more weight, you have less room for error because your total calorie requirement goes down, and therefore, practically speaking, it's harder to lose fat the leaner and leaner you get because adherence becomes more difficult. You've got a smaller fat loss window when it comes to your calorie intake. You can think about it like having a $5,000 monthly budget versus a $4,000 monthly budget. Of course, it's easier to overspend in the $4,000 situation because you're working with less total money. Exact same situation in regards to fat loss. You've got a smaller total budget the leaner and leaner you get. So now we get to the how do you continue to progress part. We've got 3 options on the table. We can increase our movement and keep our calorie intake the same. We can decrease our calorie intake and keep our movement the same, or we can increase our movement and decrease our calorie intake. Those are the 3 routes that you can take if you want to continue to progress, because nothing changes if nothing changes. So you've got to shift something around on either the calorie intake, expenditure, or both spectrum. It's also important to note that fat loss takes time. You didn't gain 30 pounds in a day, in a week, or even a month, most likely. It probably happened fairly slowly over the course of potentially 5 months or maybe 5 years. And fortunately, you can lose it a lot faster than you gained it, which is funny that folks tend to want results even faster than that, but it's human nature. I get it. So it's important to exercise patience, because the key when it comes to sustained fat loss is action over time, aka consistency. Being 100% on for a week and a half per month just isn't going to work. But being 80 to 90% on all the time will, without a doubt, get you to your goal. It's simply a matter of time. Now, there is a balance to be had as far as how fast you're progressing, just because if you're improving so slowly that you just get discouraged and quit, that's an issue, right? Like if you have 40 pounds to lose and you're losing a pound per month, man, not only is that hard to measure, but 40 months is a long time. So you want to find a happy medium where you're losing at an appreciable rate, but you're still enjoying your life in the process. So does fat loss have to quote unquote slow down the leaner and leaner you get? In regards to a total number on the scale, i.e. total pounds, yes, it does have to slow down. However, in regards to relative percentage losses, it doesn't in theory, but like I mentioned, you've got less and less wiggle room or room for error, and therefore adherence to your calorie deficit becomes more and more difficult, which results in slower relative percentages, practically speaking, in the real world for the vast majority of people, just from an implementation standpoint. Circling back to how to assess your progress and continuing to get fat loss results, the thing that I always like to remind myself as well as my clients of is that the body never lies. And so if you're progressing, amazing, keep rolling. But if you're not, something needs to change, because if nothing changes, nothing changes. And if you want a different outcome, you have to address the inputs and or the outputs. So again, you've got 3 options: increase output, i.e. move more, decrease input, i.e. reduce calories, or increase output and decrease input, i.e. move more and reduce your calorie intake. Personally, I get all of my clients to favor single and minimal ingredient whole foods because they're highly satiating, which means my clients rarely, if ever, feel hungry, and they're highly nutrient dense. So fortunately, we can prioritize our health and our body composition at the same time. Movement-wise, the most reliable way to increase energy output is via increasing your step count. And if you're not hitting 10,000 steps per day yet, I'd recommend getting there. Walking is super underrated for fat loss, and working out is highly overrated. Workouts are great, but folks tend to drastically overestimate how many calories they actually burn via formal exercise. So if you apply this information, it's not a matter of if you're going to get fat loss results. Fortunately, it's just a matter of when. If you're interested in applying for one-on-one nutritional coaching and or workout design with me, you can click the link in the description below or head on over to n1fitness.com/coaching. Follow me up on Instagram at N1Fitness, and feel free to friend me on Facebook at Marcus Sadu. Thank you so much to the folks that have taken 15 to 30 seconds out of their day to leave a review on their favorite podcast platform. I truly appreciate you. Thank you. And lastly, be sure to hit the subscribe button. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope that you found this useful. Good luck out there with your fat loss process. I'll catch you on the next episode. See ya.